Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Interview with a Hitman. This movie tells the story of a ruthless hitman who tells the story about himself to a film producer. After being betrayed by the very men who made him, he must fake his own death and escape to London, where he joins a new gangster family and finds his rules are again put to the test in the midst of a vicious underworld power struggle. What is the life story of this ruthless hitman which is filled with betrayal? Let's find out in Interview with a Hitman. Interview with a Hitman begins by showing a man named Viktor, who is famous for being very cruel and sadistic when he kills his targets. On the other hand, a film producer named Xavier is on his way to a place where the man hides a small gun in his sock just in case. Xavier also seemed to grimace in fear because he was about to interview Viktor, a professional assassin who would tell his life's journey, where Xavier later intended to adapt Viktor's life story into a film. Viktor then begins his story about his childhood, where he was raised in a slum area in a remote district of Bucharest, Romania. Viktor, who was playing with his friends at that time, was visited by two teenage boys who often bullied Viktor and demanded money forcibly from Viktor. Viktor was then beaten, then threatened by them because he again couldn't give them what they wanted. Arriving home, Viktor finds his father being beaten and threatened by the local mafia led by Sergei, because his father still has unpaid debts. But Viktor, who saw his father being beaten, did not care because he actually hated his father who often drank and gambled, and treated his family harshly. Therefore, at that very moment, Viktor decided to meet Sergei and ask the man for a job. Viktor has no intention of paying off his father's debt, but he just wants to escape from his own fate. At first, Sergei underestimated Viktor and ordered one of his men to beat the boy. But after seeing Viktor's courage and determination to get hired, Sergei decides to hire Viktor as a debt collector, and Viktor can start his job tomorrow. Viktor then witnesses his father abusing his mother. In the evening, Sergei returns to Viktor's father to collect his debt. But Viktor's father is killed anyway even though he tries to pay off his debt to Sergei. The next day, Viktor's mother received her husband's money and cigarette lighter, which indicated that her husband had died. Knowing that his father had died, Viktor didn't seem the least bit sad because now his mother no longer had to endure harsh treatment. As time goes by, Viktor, who works for Sergei, is getting used to the harsh environment of the gangsters, and is proficient in using weapons so that the young men who used to bully him are now starting to submit to him. One day, Viktor is assigned to collect a debt from a man named Anthony. But when he got there, Anthony kicked Viktor out and thought that Sergei didn't respect him for sending a boy to collect a debt. Unable to accept being belittled like that, Viktor then kills Anthony and his wife, and is about to kill their two very young daughters when Sergei and his boss, trafficant, finally come to stop Viktor and take him away from there. After the incident, Viktor was transferred to the city, where he would work with trafficant's son, Franco, who was his age. Viktor is then placed under the tutelage of Sergei, who teaches him how to become a hitman. In addition to preparation, wiretapping, infiltration, and elimination, Sergei also teaches Viktor how to destroy strong people by killing those they care about. Over time, Viktor grew into a professional assassin whose number of victims was countless. One night, Viktor and Sergei are assigned to make drug purchases along with Franco. However, for some reason, Franco tries to kill David, the man he made a deal with, and Viktor and Sergei are forced to support him, killing David and his bodyguards. Unfortunately, the man who made a deal with them was the son of a notorious mob boss, Vadim. Knowing that Franco had killed David, Trafficant then ordered Sergei to kill Viktor as a scapegoat because he wanted to protect his son. After the shooting incident, Viktor returns to his apartment and turns on the shower in the bathroom when Sergei sneaks in to kill him. But Viktor had been so well trained that he could already anticipate Sergei's arrival and disarm him. They then sat down together and discussed how things had gotten to this point. It was obvious that the two men respected each other, but Sergei explained that he had to kill Viktor on Trafficant's orders, even though he didn't want to. Sergei had no other choice but to kill Viktor, or else he would be killed himself. But in the end, Sergei gave his life in the hands of Viktor, who seemed so devastated by the death of Sergei, a man who had contributed the most in his life. Knowing that the Romanian mafia will not rest until they believe he is dead, Viktor then places a body double in his place and sets his apartment on fire. After faking his own death, Viktor starts a new life in London by relying on his skills and experience as a gangster, where he tries to find Raphael, a most wanted informant by the London mafia boss named Tosca. Because the man is planned to testify at a trial that will corner Tosca. It didn't take long for Viktor to discover Raphael's whereabouts and bring him before Tosca, where Viktor told Tosca that he could do a job that all of Tosca's men couldn't. However, one of Tosca's men, Kovacs, accuses Viktor of being an undercover cop and intends to kill him. Tosca then prevents his men who want to kill Viktor and instead hires Viktor because he is impressed with his abilities. A few days later, Tosca assigns Viktor to kill a British police officer named Charles, who often complicates Tosca's business because he cannot be bribed. After agreeing with the fee, Viktor immediately took action by visiting a coffee shop that Charles usually visited. Viktor kills Charles using only the liquid nicotine he pours into the man's coffee, which immediately causes heart failure, and Charles eventually dies. Tosca, knowing that Charles is dead, invites Viktor to celebrate his success at a nightclub. On the other hand, Kovacs looks displeased with Viktor, who is now more concerned by Tosca than he is. However, Viktor and Tosca are suddenly attacked in the middle of the trip, so they give up celebrating Viktor's success and rush back to headquarters. Viktor took the cell phone of one of the attackers to investigate who was behind the attack. Arriving at the base, Kovacs then accused Viktor of having ordered the attack. However, through the attacker's cell phone, Tosca and Viktor find out that it was actually Kovacs who had planned the attack. Viktor then kills Kovacs, and Tosca asks him to replace Kovacs, but Viktor refuses. After a long time working for Tosca, Viktor decided to quit. However, as a farewell request, Tosca asks him to do one last task, which is to kill a female reporter named Martha, who wrote a slanderous article about him. That night, while sneaking into Martha's apartment, Viktor discovers that Martha has a baby. Viktor, who apparently still has compassion, then tells Martha to go as far as possible because the mafia is after the woman, while Viktor will fake Martha's death. After doing his job, Viktor then goes to a coffee shop, where he sees some criminals coming and harassing a woman. The criminals then took the woman, beat her, and tried to rape her. At first, Viktor did not want to interfere and was about to leave. But after he heard the voice of the woman being beaten and abused, he remembered his mother, who was often beaten and abused by his father. Viktor changed his mind and finally saved the woman, whose name is Bethesda. Before boarding the taxi, Bethesda gave Viktor her business card and asked him to call her. Not long after, Viktor and Bethesda finally met again and they fell in love with each other. After 6 months of making love, Viktor discovers that Bethesda is pregnant. Knowing that Bethesda is pregnant with his child, Viktor becomes very unsure of himself and intends to kill her. But Viktor finally gave up his intention and wanted to open a new chapter of life with Bethesda and quit his job. One night, a man infiltrates Viktor's residence and attacks him. It turns out that the man is none other than his childhood friend, Caesar, who has found out that Viktor is still alive and tries to kill him on orders from trafficking. Viktor then returns to Bucharest, where he finds that his mother died not long after he went to the city with Sergei. Viktor also learns that the two bullies who used to threaten him for money as a child have now become local mobsters doing the same thing as Sergei. Viktor then kills them both for daring to take the money Viktor sent for his mother. After that, Viktor visits Traficant at a restaurant and asks about how Traficant found out that Viktor was still alive. Turns out, Viktor's old friend, Alexei, now works for Interpol, and knowing that Viktor is still alive, then tells Traficant. After a short conversation, Viktor shoots Traficant and leaves the restaurant. Viktor next visits Alexei in his office to find out why the man sold him to Traficant, and also to kill him. But Viktor then changed his mind after seeing a photo of Alexei with his family. Viktor then orders Alexei to bury the video evidence showing that he is still alive, and warns him that he will kill Alexei and his family if Alexei breaks his promise. Finally, the interview draws to a close, where Bethesda suddenly appears and Xavier seems to know her. Viktor then gave him a ring, belonging to Xavier's brother, which indicated that he had been killed. Bethesda then tells the story of two little girls who were forcibly taken from their families and sold to serve philanderers. One sister is weaker and dies, but the other is stronger and survives. Bethesda is the stronger who survived. She was used by Xavier when she was only 10. The interview was a trap to make him dream that he could have his film career back. Viktor then shoots Xavier. When Viktor was off guard, Bethesda then grabbed Xavier's gun and told Viktor to sit down with a gun pointed at him. Bethesda explains why she worked so hard to get to this point, where it is eventually revealed that Viktor is the one who killed Bethesda's parents when he first started his career as a hitman. Bethesda and her sister are Anthony's daughters, whom after the death of her parents, Traficant took them away and sold them to Xavier. In other words, Viktor is the main cause of all the suffering experienced by Bethesda, so she purposely lures Viktor, convinces him to kill Xavier, and will eventually destroy Viktor. Before killing Viktor, Bethesda reveals to him that the baby she is carrying is a boy. And when the boy is old enough, Bethesda will show him the video of the interview, so that the boy can find out what kind of man his father is and hated him all his life. The film ends. The moral of this film is, never to ever get involved with gangsters, because once trapped in their dark world, it will be hard to escape.